Hello, my name is Jeff. This is Castle Tutelage, your home defense network. Again, what I always want to talk about with you guys is you have to be your own marketing campaign. What makes you look the best? What is your narrative going to be when you're in a concealed carry event? Now, this guy is the attorney on the left. His name is escaping me right now. I'll have to go. Yeah, Ian Friedman. He is a big muckety muck in Ohio and in the higher ups. The more I look into him, the more I am impressed with what he does. Now, he's going to be asked very a specific question. What does he see in his office when it comes to concealed carry weapons people the most? What I find interesting is none of it is in a use of force event. Everything is ancillary to a weapon and what it brings. And I want you guys to hear the five most top things that he sees in his office when it comes to a concealed carry weapons person. And I want to preface this by saying that he is in Ohio, so two out of the five things are going to be Ohio specific, but it should still heed a very big warning, okay?
Sure. So people who have permits to carry firearms mostly come to us for, I would say, five things. People will come to the office and say, I just got arrested for one of these things. Number one, they went to a bar, they were at a friend's house, and they got stopped. They had been drinking while having a firearm on them or about their person. That's problem number one.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this. And some states, and I'm in one of them, specifically state that you can drink alcohol and still, well, it doesn't specifically state you can drink alcohol. But what they have done is if you blow a point .04, you can still legally have a firearm on you. But what I want to get to this is what? Your narrative. Are you going to be deemed a reasonable person if you blow a .03 and are in a serious life or death situation? Okay, a use of force event. That's something that you don't know if you're going to be doing again. When you're dealing with the law, you're always dealing with facts. You're dealing with the gray area. So there's never even a black or white area. It's going to be the proven facts and each other's narrative, the state's narrative and your narrative.
Number two, they got pulled over by an officer or were approached by an officer and did not state that they are concealed carry holders quickly enough and make it clear enough. And so that's number two.
And I want to talk a little bit. This is also state specific. The definition in a lot of states is any contact with an officer. So if you are sitting at a donut shop and you're waiting in line to buy a donut and an officer walks in, that's any contact. If you don't say that you are a concealed carry weapons person in the states that require it, you could be hampering a lot, especially if you're wearing a t-shirt, a bulge in your pants, some printing, whatever the scenario is. You could be putting yourself in jeopardy and having to go to a lawyer to defend yourself. Now, in the state of Minnesota, we only have to divulge this if we are asked in an affirmative position. I've always found it interesting that if I wasn't concealed carrying and they asked if I had a gun, I don't have to tell them that I don't have a gun, just that I do have a gun. So what are you going to do is say, I am compliant with the law? So that's just Minnesota specific, and he's talking about Ohio specific, but if your state requires to give notice to the police officer on any contact, that's what it is. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, Dale Carson. He has a book called Arrest Proof Yourself. I think everyone should buy that book and read it. His thing is, if you don't have to tell them, don't tell them, because it could create other problems down the road. You could get a rookie cop or a cop that isn't that doesn't believe that civilians should carry guns, that could be creating a problem for you. So whether you take one advice or another advice, you need to figure out for yourself. And I also say that Dale Carson does a very good job in his book, specifically telling you why not to divulge any information to a cop. You could take that advice. I'm not going to sit here and talk 20 minutes on what justifies that position, but you need to carefully think it over and know your state's laws.
Number three, unfortunately, people think that it's okay. Usually we see road rage incidents where all of a sudden they'll take their gun and they'll kind of show it like this, to kind of get the person to go away. Or they'll, have a confrontation with someone and they'll kind of pull their shirt or their jacket back to show the gun. Big no-no also. Number four, surprising.
We've talked about this a lot. A road rage incident, showing an aggressive person your gun. If they haven't displayed jeopardy with the ability and opportunity with the AOJ triad that you are going to be harmed, great bodily harm, physically or death, some kind of jeopardy that's shown, and you flash them the gun just so they'll back off. I get so many comments about this. Oh, you just want to flash them the gun, they'll back down. There is a statistic out there, and John Farnham talks about this a lot, is when a gun is entered into a life or death event, the bad guy will back away. Okay? That is a good thing. I think you should only be aware of that statistic if you have a use of force event that you needed to immediately defend yourself, and the situation turns to the fact that you are no longer in immediate death, a fear of death or great bodily harm, when your gun comes out. You need to be able to stop your finger from pulling that trigger at that point. Okay? So that's where people get confused. You are going to be in a world of hurt if you use your gun as a deterrent when the threat of death or of great bodily harm hasn't been presented. He's going to do number 4 right now.
When this first happened, I thought, this will be the only time this happens. I've been surprised for a number of years now how many people take their weapon through the airport.
Really?
Yeah, the metal detectors through the TSA.
Wow.
And they don't do it intentionally, of course. Usually what happens is they packed the bag that they took their stuff to the range in and didn't realize that they left a small firearm in there as well. Number 5.
Okay, this kind of happened to my wife. I kind of did this. We were driving from California to Minnesota. It was our final move out here. And I was just sicker than a dog. And I didn't have a permit for Colorado. And Colorado would have shaved off about an hour and a half off our trip. And I was going to go up and over Wyoming because I did have a permit for Wyoming. And decided to go through Colorado. So what I did is took off my gun, stripped up the bullets in the magazine, and locked it into my suitcase going through, it was a hard-sided suitcase going through Colorado. What happened was I didn't retrieve all my bullets out of that suitcase. My wife packs it for her trip back to California a few months later, and she gets stopped by the TSA for having 7 Smith & Wesson .40 caliber bullets in her suitcase. I felt crappy that I did that to my wife, and we had to pay a several $100 fine, but it was the idea of my wife being there because of my stupidity. And let's just face it, she should have gone through the suitcase anyway. Okay, so this is something that you have to be aware of. If you are using bags interchangeably going to the range or whatever, you need to be aware of this. Okay.
would be going into an establishment where there's a sign posted that you can't bring a weapon in. And a lot of people know that they can't bring that weapon in, but they still do it anyway because it's concealed, and what's the chance of someone seeing it? And that's where we'll get into today kind of what we think you need to do if you're going to carry a lesson, because you get into printing and people being able to see that weapon
Sure.
and so forth. But going past those signs and then finding that you're charged with carrying it.
Okay, this is specifically Ohio, but there are other states where that sign is is forcible. Okay, of no trespassing with a gun. Again, in the state of Minnesota, the sign really doesn't mean anything. But if you're told to leave, you must leave, and if you don't leave, well, that's when the issue becomes. This is a big problem. What I have is just because of the nature of what I do, I can't tell you to disobey signs or disobey laws, and you can really just debate this forever. But remember what you always have to be. You have when you're when you're dealing in my world and you're dealing with my narrative, and I'm kind of stuck this way. Innocence, imminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonableness. If you are in a place where you are not legally able to be, are you an innocent person? If you go into, in some states, you need to ask a person's permission, verbal permission, to enter their house with a firearm. Okay? Some states you need to do that. Some other states you don't need to do that. But if you are in a place where you're not legally able to be, and you have a life or death event, a use of force incident, what is your narrative going to be? I mean, we can play this what if game all the time. The people will say, well, yeah, I go in there because something may happen. Well, that's true. Something may happen. And you'd still be alive. You know, Andrew Bronco will always tell you, you need to win the physical fight. Even though that may be in conflict with the legal fight, you need to win the physical fight. But I would never suggest that you go into, like if you were in Ohio and you saw a sign and you went in there and somebody saw your gun through printing, through a bulge, through you reaching up to get your Pop-Tarts and so on, saw your holster. Okay? All these things. And again, this guy, this defense attorney, Ian, these are the 5 top things that he sees in his office, and none of them has to do with the use of force incident. Now, the third one and the fifth one, if you're not in Ohio, or if you're not in the type of states that requires to tell an officer or private property rights with a sign, you don't have to heed this, but get through the idea that if you are a concealed carry person, you are more likely to get an administrative issue or what he's saying here than a use of force incident. We all train for that use of force incident, but people, you have to understand, it's the totality in the narrative. It is when you, let's just say a school zone, when you have a gun, you have greater duty to heed, to be cautious. It's your greater duty with the gun. That means you need to figure out through the entire day where you're going. Do you have to go to the school to pick up the kids? Do you have to go to the post office, the courthouse? Do you have to go to a restaurant that a sign is posted? These are the things that if you carry a weapon, you need to think throughout the day. Are you going to be going to some place that is hot? A t-shirt, jeans, dress pants. Those are all the scenarios that you need to think ahead of time so you can save yourself a lot of grief and a lot of headache in certain aspects of carrying a gun. Again, the issues of carrying a gun isn't that you'll be in a use of force event. It is the administrative problems and the 5 issues that Ian has talked about in this video. My name is Jeff. This is Castle Tutelage, your home defense network. I hope this helped.